leave the saving of the world to the men? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Hey.
Hey, girl.
Hello. Reunited and it's
It seems like forever.
Yes,
I
it has
know.
been a couple of weeks. We have had a lot happen in the last couple of weeks. We needed some quiet time to reflect. And then everybody went off and traveled and went places except for me. Sat here, did schoolwork. Sat in a classroom, was trapped there while you guys traveled. Tell everybody where you went and what you did. Jalen, you start.
So I went to, I'm probably going to say it wrong, and then all the golf people will come after me. The PGA Championship, I believe is what it was called. You could tell I'm a super fan. Husband is super into golf, and this is the closest a major championship would get to us. It was in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We went there and watched a lot of pro golfers, and it was interesting because when they were playing bad, they were still like really good. I'm just like, oh, didn't know people could be this good at sports. Like I've never seen like someone that close in person, like actually do a sports thing. So it was a lot of fun. I had more fun than I thought I was going to have. So
That is great. That sounds fun. And like, so is Taylor really into golf? And so, okay, cool.
Yep. So he's actually golfing right now. So he'll probably come home and the dogs will start barking. But
So you just like sat outside or stood outside all day long.
Yep.
But
so it's like we got there about between 8 and 9 every day, and then left around 4 or 5.
But
So
do you like move with the golfers? You just stay at a certain hole and then they kind of come and
we did a little bit of both. So one day we followed a couple golfers around. So we would walk around the course a couple times, and then other times we would just sit in one of the grandstands on one of the holes and just watch a bunch of golfers come through that way. And I mean, I didn't know what to expect because, like I said, I'm not a golfer or really a big golf fan. But yeah, it was more fun than I thought it was going to be. And, you know, it was just outside. At least I was outside. And it was decent weather the whole time.
That helps.
And I love too just how like perfectly manicured like the golf courses and just the perfect lines. I'm like,
yeah,
this is awesome.
It was cool. They kind of were like, they want people to walk. They'll like dye down the grass a little bit. So like that wasn't as fun because then you see like brown grass in certain spots. But
Anthony's hating. He says golf is boring AF. But hey,
well, it's more fun in person than it is watching it on TV. I will say that because every time I watch it on TV with him, I fall asleep. So I at least didn't fall asleep in person. You didn't see me on TV like laying underneath a tree passed out or anything. So
that's good.
That's awesome. Maya, where did you go?
So I went to Copenhagen, Denmark. The purpose of the trip was going to the Global Fashion Summit. So it was, I mean, the summit was only 3 days, but it was amazing. Just met a lot of awesome people. But all the other days I was there, and I was there for like 8 days, just exploring, going around the city. Like everything is walkable and bikeable. So there's more bikes, way more bikes than cars. So it was just like the mecca for sustainability. Like everything there is just recycling. Like there's no you don't see a lot of trash. It almost felt like utopia because everyone is just so happy. They have a lot of pride into I'm like, ew, I look at American flag and I cringe. And, the Danish flag, they use it as like a party favor. Like, oh, someone goes graduates or anything, they bring it everywhere. So there was a ton of different cultural differences, and I actually went viral on TikTok because of it. So I'm like, I have 1.3 million views on a TikTok just because it was video footage of me telling an Italian girl what we call like the sleeveless white tank, and it's unfortunately called a wife beater, and they thought it was like the most cringe American thing ever, which it is.
Yes, it is. How is this still like a thing that we're calling? I've been thinking about that for a while because I will never call it that. I'll call it a white tank.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I feel like over a lot of people, Anthony we're just going to flash this quickly and then take it down. And then Chris Don, I remember he commented when I posted it too, because it's like people were kind of like taking on different like words for it. And then I guess Hands came out and said, we're trying to change the name to a wife pleaser. So
just like just call it like a tank top.
Yeah, you don't need to call it wife anything.
It's like tank tops are different. I was trying to explain to someone in the comments, like there's a tank top and then there's like that thin or ribbed white specific one is like very different because I guess like cops really like was like the reason for the widespread of the term and whatnot. Like, go to a lot of domestic violence like calls, and usually the guy is wearing that. So I feel like you still got to give a term for that just to separate it. Because my friend who's Polish, the Polish version also means wife beater. Isn't that crazy?
Really? No way.
Yes.
Interesting.
So
interesting. What did the Italians call it again?
It's I don't even know if it's canatera or something like that. It's in the video. I'm going to butcher that. But it's just like, I think it's just a word you would just use for a general tank top. Anyway, it's definitely cool. But I thought that was just funny because I'm still getting like notifications for that video. Oh, that's what happens when you travel abroad. So that was a little bit about my trip.
But we have
fun. I want to go there. It's on my bucket list.
Yes. Yeah, we have like between the girls here traveled quite a bit. Maya travels a lot. I have traveled a lot. I have not done so in the last couple of years. So we thought we missed you guys so much. We missed it because of travel. So why not talk about travel? Because it is something that we love. But first, you guys know what time it is.
You're right.
May I have your attention, please? May I have your attention, please?
It's attention moments. These are moments that have gone on this week that have caught our attention. There was a lot to choose from this week. I will say
there
that.
Was
A lot to choose from. It was hard to narrow it down. Jalen, yours is the cutest. You go first.
So mine is Chris Evans and puppies. I mean, one, look how happy his face is. And then look how happy that little puppy's face in his hand is. Like, look, they're just so cute. I know, right? So BuzzFeed does these puppy interviews with different celebrities, and they're a lot of fun if you want to go watch them. I believe his episode comes out tomorrow. But yeah, they just basically try to interview them, and they hardly answer any questions because they're so excited about these puppies. And everyone knows that Chris Evans is a huge dog person. So they were trying to get him to do this interview for a very long time. And he finally has done it. And I'm so excited to watch it tomorrow.
Yeah, the press for all the Lightyear stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, the girls have definitely been thirsting. Men and women have been thirsting over Chris Evans. Like,
as
man.
they should. As they should. Like,
he looks amazing.
So many Chris Evans moments from this week alone that we could have pulled. Like him completely like shaming and just like bitch slapping a bunch of countries for their ignorance. Not screening the new Buzz Lightyear movie because there is a same-sex kiss, a cartoon same-sex kiss. Like it's 2020, 22. We are past this. We are past it. And he just did not have any time for that. And we like that here.
Yes, we love a cultured man. for sure.
Yes. Maya, I know you're
Well,
excited about your moment.
Earth-shattering news today. Beyonce, not only did she have this amazing British Vogue cover, she announced the drop of her next album, July 29th, called Renaissance. I feel like I've been waiting years for this because 2 years ago, there was like for one of the Destiny's Child reunion videos, they were all like talking. It was like virtual middle of the pandemic, and she was talking about how she's working on music. So literally every single day, I'm like, she could be dropping an album tomorrow. Like everyone was just like, ah. So just to see like these iconic looks and just knowing new music is on the horizon. I think it's supposed to be 16 tracks.
Nice.
I'm like, oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. This is gonna be everything. Once that album comes out, I'm just gonna need a whole week to make sure that I'm good because I'm so obsessed with her.
Take a week off.
I mean, who isn't?
We have a call out in the comments about Natalie Portman's Mighty Thor poster, and we can't bring up her post. I will not allow this to be brought up without bringing up Tessa Thompson's Thor poster because that made me feel some things. Chris poster as
I'm
well.
like, you can put me in a headlock gladly.
Yeah, right?
We love that. My attention moment comes from a little Instagram that was posted this afternoon.
Look who
Simu and Chloe Simu Liu posted a picture with Chloe Bennett saying Marvel's first Asian superhero posing with some guy. And I love this because it's classic Simu. Simu is Canadian and he understands my humor through and through. Mm-hmm. Is one of us. But just the representation to acknowledge Chloe as the first Asian superhero or Marvel's first Asian superhero, and knowing how like Simu has just kind of taken it to the next level with Shang-Chi, and just I don't know, to me like this is just like a classic representation matters and a feel-good warm fuzzy story. So I had to shout that out.
And she was from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So she's not even in the MCU proper. Okay. So she's the greater.
Gotcha. I had no idea.
Yeah, she's cool. If
Ryan, well, and I know a lot of people want her to come back to the MCU, so yeah, maybe we'll get them together.
Yeah, she's pretty popular. Okay. So you guys ready to talk about some travel? We're going to talk a little bit today about some of our favorite travel experiences, some of our travel tips. Does anybody have a tip they want to start with?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
This is fresh in my mind. I had like the baggage scenario from hell going to Copenhagen, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'll just go straight to the tip. If you check a bag, make sure you have a carry-on that has a few outfits,
underwear,
travel size. Don't put your medication in your check bag, as if you're able to last a few days with only things in your carry-on. Because this is my third scenario where my baggage was lost or delayed, and it's just a nightmare. Yeah. So I definitely would recommend.
You may or may not get it back, right? Like at that point, like may or may not get it back.
I was almost to the end of my trip before I got my luggage while in Copenhagen.
Wait, this time?
Yes.
Again?
Yes. If I thank God for a twin sister who had, outfits, and then I also packed clothes in my carry-on. So if I did not pack clothes in my carry-on, I would be SOL. So I think it's really important to just like pack that way, pack strategically, go to the Target, or I think like Walmart, you can go to the $1 minis, like mini lotion, mini toothpaste, all that stuff, and like make sure that's in your luggage.
For listeners, Maya went somewhere in the States like maybe 2 months ago and they lost her luggage.
Yeah, it was in Palm Springs. They lost my luggage and I was at a conference. It was horrible.
See, I would say something along the same lines, but a little the guys in the chat Or on the same page, we'll say that. I would say the carry-on for sure. So if I'm traveling anywhere less than 3 weeks, I will only bring a carry-on. I won't ever bring checked luggage. I'll just bring, I'm obviously going to wear the same 2 to 3 outfits every single day, or like some variation of the same 2 to 3 outfits, aside from the like 17 outfits that I think that I might wear on vacation and you never do. But things like toothpaste, a toothbrush, like shampoo, all that stuff you can buy in whatever country that you're going to, unless you're pretty sure that it's not easily accessible in that country. So I would say anything that you cannot get. So like if you have to get like your basic clothes, your basic shoes, whatever, but then like any kind of valuables that you might have, stick in there. And then everything else you can always buy wherever you're going, for the most part.
That's very true.
All very smart.
Yeah.
I don't like carry-ons because I'm too short to put them up in the overhead bin. So if I do bring a carry-on, it's always like a backpack or something that I can put under my seat. I can't do, I get too nervous trying to put a suitcase overhead. Unless I'm like with someone that can do it for me. Well, if I'm by myself.
7.5 feet.
Yeah. So. If Taylor is with me, he's got it. Yes.
Also, like none of the hard carry-on nonsense. Like get a soft duffel bag or a backpack. You can really shove a lot. And their sides will expand.
Absolutely. And so
my tip was to never pack a full bag. So as hard as it is, because again, everybody always thinks that you're going to wear all of these wonderful outfits you've never worn in 2.5 years on this vacation. You're not going to. You're just not. So pack 2/3 of your bag so that you have 1/3 left to bring back any kind of like nice food that you want, any kind of like fun souvenirs, any clothing that you buy. I always buy a piece of clothing, or I try to, a piece of something wherever I am so I can bring home to remember that by. But if you don't leave room in your suitcase to begin with, then you have to start leaving your own stuff where you go or pay for another luggage. And I just don't have the funds to do that. So I've learned to pack late there so I can bring stuff home on the way back.
Yeah, that's facts. And it's so bizarre too. Somehow dirty clothes weigh more than clean clothes, because the same exact stuff, my souvenirs I put in my carry-on, so the same exact stuff that was in my checked bag somehow was like 4 pounds heavier. I didn't put anything new in there. So it's always good to like leave space, because I think Dota, if your bag was over, it was like $100. So definitely good to underpack.
I have friends who bring like a little like laundry bag with some kind of laundry detergent or some soap, so that when if you're staying in a hostel or if you're staying in an Airbnb or a hotel and you don't have access to a laundry machine, you can wash it in the sink. So you just wash your clothes in the sink so you have clean clothes, so you can only bring like 3 or 4 things and then still get away with wearing it for 2 weeks because you're still washing it.
That's a great tip. Another tip that I had is around flights, because especially nowadays, flights are ridiculous.
Yes.
I use a tool called Scotch Cheap Flights. I don't know if y'all have heard of them. It is like heaven sent, and it's really good if I think you get the most value of it when you decide to do trips based on cheap flights. Like that's what a lot of my friends and I do. Like, oh, we see a cheap flight, we'll make a trip out of it. And so I forget how much it is a year. I want to say like $50. Maybe I cut it on a discount just for the year. And they'll give you send you emails on, oh, Columbus to Croatia. And then sometimes there are like glitches in the system. So there were a few flights that I saw, they were like, Italy, $150 round trip. Yeah, if you're flexible.
What?
Like a glitch. And glitches happen all the time. So every time those glitches happen, I get emailed, and they tell you from you can give them multiple different airports that you're flying out of. So Scott Cheap's Flights is an amazing resource. Google Flights is great.
Taking that note.
Yeah.
Writing that down.
Scott's Cheap Flights.
Yes, I like the name Scott.
Huh.
Oh,
Never even heard of it. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
write that down.
Yes.
I had a similar tip that's a little bit different, I guess, in that I travel a lot to Europe. So from Toronto to London is you can get pretty cheap flights, like fairly cheap, like 500 to maybe $600 round trip from Toronto to London. From London, you can fly all over Europe for like $20. So I always like just fly to London, and then from there, like I'll spend like a day because I love London. So I'm always happy to spend time there, but I'll then buy a ticket to like Greece or France. I once flew round trip to France for $14. And like here, I don't know about where you guys live, but here, like I can't even take a 1 hour bus to Toronto for $14 one way.
Nope.
Like a round trip to France flight. So my tip was always to fly somewhere where it's cheap. If you're in Europe, find like a main hub, spend some time there, and then fly somewhere super cheap because you can find crazy deals on like Ryanair or EasyJet, like literally for like $20, like even now. So really worth it.
That is just so insane. Because when I was in Denmark, everyone was like coming from different parts of Europe for the conference, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh, your flights are so cheap." Even me going to the next state over, like from Ohio, that's going to be like $150 flight. So the fact that you can, I just like something is working there, just not working here in North America, because that is insane.
Yeah,
That's a
so
great
a lot
tip.
of my like pretty much my entire family lives in Vancouver, which is on the west of Canada. And so it's about like a 5-6 hour flight for me. And I will constantly go to Europe instead of going home to visit because it's cheaper. It is cheaper. So, and they always get after me. And I'm like, okay, but you know, the food, the scenery, it's cheaper. Like,
Thanks.
Jalen, you do a lot of road tripping.
We
More than
do.
What are some of your road trip tips?
So, yeah, so we like to drive places. I think it's just a Midwest thing because everything is around us. So, and flying places seems to take the same amount as it does for driving. And if we drive, then we already have our own car and don't have to spend money on a car or Uber or anything like that. But when you're road tripping, one of my tips is to always bring snacks. I'm sure that's a big surprise for you guys for me to say that, but always bring snacks. If you go to the grocery store before you leave for your trip and stock up, that way you don't have to buy gas station food or run through a drive-through. We'll always pack a cooler and pack like sandwich fixings and stuff. So we have, lunch to eat, if, some chips or pretzels or granola bars, whatever's easy to eat, while driving. Another tip for me, at least, is I don't like to drive. So always try to road trip with someone who does like to drive. Because then you could just, take a nap, watch a movie, read a book. You don't have to focus on paying attention to the road or the other drivers around you. You can just relax and enjoy your surroundings, wherever you're driving, whether it's through mountains or if I'm in Nebraska, so a lot of cornfields. So just find someone who likes to drive. That's a game changer.
My fiance is watching this right now, sweating because anywhere he has to track him back everywhere. He's gonna be like, stop hanging out with these people.
That is funny. Like Jalen said, I'm also from the Midwest, so like that's so true. Like sometimes you just default just drive places, and sometimes I find myself not having somebody to drive with, so I'm making the trip. So I recently just drove to Indianapolis, and I was getting tired at the wheel. rolling down the window, letting the air hit your face is
Mhm.
like a great way to stay up.
Mhm.
Obviously, like talking on the phone with someone is probably the best way. But
Mhm.
also then like blasting music to the point where it's so loud you know there's no way you can even want to close your eyes.
Mhm.
Like I'm always put Beyonce on the highest level, and then my ears are ringing for the rest of the day. But it was worth it because I didn't get a car crash.
Right.
So those are some tips on staying awake at the wheel.
Yes. Or if you feel like you're gonna fall asleep, just pull over.
Right.
Whether there's a rest stop or gas station or just the side of the road, just pull over rather than
Yeah.
falling asleep at the wheel. Don't do that.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's parking lots everywhere.
Mhm.
Like, there's always like a Target, or not here, but like where you guys are. There's
Mhm.
always, like, a
Actually,
Target.
like honestly, when you're in the Midwest driving, it's like rest stops. Like you don't
Yeah.
really see
Oh, yeah.
main buildings unless
Rest
you get off from like
stops, a
yeah,
small
because they're usually
town.
yeah, like it's like that one attendant, really small gas station.
Mhm.
It's
I
weird vibes sometimes driving in the Midwest, so I never like to stop. But
Yeah. I try not to. It's funny. The first time I drove up to Valentine, which is where my husband's from, he would always go back home during the summer for college, and I went up to visit him. And I've never been up there. I've never driven that far by myself. It's 5 hours away from here. But you drive through all these small towns, like 100 less people towns. And for some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to watch The Hills Have Eyes the day before I left. And so the whole time I'm driving, I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm like, someone's about to throw a spiky thing across the road, and my tires are going to explode, and these people are going to kidnap me. Like, that's what I thought the whole time. That did not happen, obviously. So, no, don't watch horror movies like that if you're going to go on a road trip through small towns.
Don't watch horror movies at all, man. There's so much like,
yeah, I agree with that.
I don't know. A friend was like, "Well, let's watch it." I'm like, "Okay, why not?" That's why not.
Yeah, I have one for snacks, since Jalen brought up snacks. My big tip is sacrifice what makes sense to you on a trip so that you can prioritize other things. So for me, like I just don't care about food. This is highly controversial, and I've come like a lot of shit for this in my life. I do not care about food. So typically what I'll do when I travel is I will go to the supermarket. Like if I can tell you the amount of times I've gone to get like a fresh baguette and a cheap bottle of wine for like $5 or less between the two of those things, and then sat on the beach and had fresh bread and wine for dinner. It's like wonderful. Or like I will have, you can get those little pastries in Europe, a little Nutella pastry and a coffee for like $3. I will have that twice. I'll have that for breakfast, and then I'll have that again for lunch. And then I'll have like maybe some tapas, some kind of appetizer, some small dish. And then occasionally, like, I'll splurge on like a really nice meal of some kind. But for me, like, since I don't care about food, then I can use my money to see more places and stay, a couple of extra days. Or I've done like similar to Jalen getting stuff for a sandwich. Like, you can go to just the supermarket, you could get a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. I've done this before. Just take your bread and peanut butter. That lasts you like 4 days. Like, you're good. Like, maybe you'll get like a pastry or an apple here or there, but you got to sacrifice on the things that don't matter as much to you so that the things that do matter, like for me, like staying longer or seeing more places matter more.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That reminds me of like, so I'm the exact opposite. Like I want to explore all the restaurants, food, everything. So like my sacrifices will be other places. That brings me to another tip though. Like for me, like every time we travel, we're like, we'll never go to a chain while we're like, even if it's like domestic travel, we'll never go to a chain, McDonald's, a Chipotle, nothing like that. But it's always good because it's so easy to like be in the moment, like, oh, I'm hungry. And then you go to whatever's near. I always try to plan the restaurants that I want to go to. Like, what are the best ones? What is the city known for? Which ones have the best reviews? And so you can prioritize the best food in that city if that's something that you want to prioritize. Because for me, I'm like, the food is a part of my experience. Like, I may not go to a museum, but you best believe I'm at that #1 pastry shop in Copenhagen. So I think it's like, too, just like making sure you pre-plan and have like an agenda, because it's easy. Oh, I'll just get there and I'll figure it out. No, like you want to have something, like a short list of things you want to do or want to see or experience when you're in a different city.
We can never.
I'm the same way.
No, we can never travel. This is like, so I spent a lot of time traveling alone. So typically what I will do the first day is I will go and just walk around the city, just get a general feel, just walk everywhere that I can, and I clock where the tourists are going and where the locals are going, because they are never the same place.
That's true.
So I will watch where the tourists go, and then I will never go there. I will always follow the locals. And then that's where you find like all of these like hole in the wall, like good food places. That's where you find like the genuine kind of beat of the city. I will never pre-plan a trip. Like I never like, okay, we're going to Rome. I'm gonna see the Colosseum. Like if I happen to walk by it, like great, but like I can see that on TV. So I want to go. I want to do what the Romans do.
Oh my God.
That was horrible.
Yeah, everything has to be touristy, granted,
Yeah, like yes and no. So like if you get off the train, you will see like there are different parts of the city. Like Venice, for example, is a really good example, because when you get off the train, there's like the big lake, I forget what it's called, the river, the Grand River, whatever it's called. On the one side, it's all locals. On the other side, it's all tourists. So it's all like big shopping, big, restaurants, high prices, everything. And everything is like 8 times the cost as it is on the other side, because the other side is just locals. Like it's just people at their little bakery, their little restaurant, and no one's there. And then somehow, like the tourists just all go to this side. The other side, that's better. Like in in Far From Home, it's Far From Home, where Tom Holland goes to that little store and gets the Black Dahlia necklace. Yeah, like that's on the other side of Venice. Always go to the other side. Always go where the tourists aren't going.
Gotcha. Good tip. That I did something like my friend who lives in Copenhagen, because I was going to like some clubs. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're playing Whitney Houston and Yeah by Lil Jon. Like every single place I go, I'm like, ew, get me out of here.
Yeah. No.
I mean, it's just to the point where it's like, oh wow, this is how you sum up American culture. It's always those same songs. I want to dance with somebody, Yeah by Lil Jon, and then freaking Shut Up and Dance by Walk the Moon. I like that song. But it's always those same songs. So he took me to like a place where it was like, oh, this is my favorite spot to go to, and it's the best music ever, and it was all on vinyl, like, and it's definitely off the beaten path. And a tourist probably doesn't even know this place exists. Like, oh my God, it was phenomenal. So I totally agree with like finding those spots that, that people who actually live there go to rather than tourists.
Yeah, I have a horrible tip. It does not reflect well on me. And if anybody comes back to me, I'll not deny it, because clearly it will now be. What I used to do was use like a dating app, like Tinder, Bumble, whatever. And then whenever you go somewhere, especially if you're traveling alone, people in relationships, just tune out for a minute. Single people. Like you can use these apps, and then you start connecting with the locals, and then they start telling you where to go and all the really cool places. And then sometimes they'll take you there and they'll buy your dinner, and then you can be like, cool, thanks, see ya. Next. And the next day you do it again with somebody else. You get free dinner again. You get like the nicest, like coolest places. Trying to impress you, because they're like, wow, this like cool Canadian girl, this cool American girl or boy or whatever is coming here. I have to show them the absolute best of my city. So you get the best of the best. And then there's no like, okay, bye, like deleted my Tinder. Sorry, can't contact me again. Like you're set. So,
So that was exactly my scenario in Copenhagen. We all knew that. I met a guy on Hinge. I put my Hinge in Copenhagen like months and months ago. Gosh, how long has it been? Probably like 6 months. And we just been friends ever since. Like it was just super platonic. At first it wasn't, but had to set that boundary. And then like he showed me the best time ever. So I think that's like someone that you kind of establish trust. Maybe not while you're there, like, hey, I'm in Copenhagen for a few days. But if you put your like dating app in like maybe a month or two ahead of time, you can build a relationship. Actually, see like who's worth talking to. Seems like not a serial killer and whatnot. Great way to know the city.
Yeah. My fiance's in the comments being upset, but like honestly, Kristan, I met you on Bumble, so you have nothing to say.
That is hilarious.
Jalen, do you have any other tips, or does anybody have any other tips? I don't think I have any.
I mean, I don't travel a whole lot, so we don't go a lot of places. I've never traveled like by myself besides like going to Valentine. Like that's the only time I've ever like traveled by myself. And growing up, we never really went places besides to like visit family in Colorado and stuff. So I feel like my traveling is just starting like in adulthood. Like pandemic has slowed it down, but I feel like now things are picking up more and actually planning trips and, actually going places and using our vacation days and not just using the vacation days to stay home. Like, let's use them and actually go somewhere. So.
Yeah, because you're planning a pretty big trip to Disney. Like.
I am. Going in September. It's my first time to Disney World, and I've never been to Disneyland either. So first Disney experience. I'm super excited, and that's actually a lot of planning that you have to do for that trip because you have to make a lot of like reservations there. You can't just wing things anymore. So that's a lot of research and figuring out what to do.
Yeah. I have lots of tips for any women, especially, I would think, but boys too, who are wanting to travel abroad alone. Because, like I said, it's something that I have done a lot. So, one thing that I do every time is I get a SIM card for whatever country I'm going to. I don't do the backpacking thing where I go like 2 days to one country and then 2 days to another. Like I don't do that. Like if I'm gonna go somewhere, I'd like to be there for a long period of time. You may be thinking, but Kara, you just told us that you go to London for a day. But it's because I lived in England for a year, so I feel like I don't have to like stay there for a period of time, and I can do that. So whenever I go somewhere, like if I go to Italy or Spain or Greece or whatever, what I'll do is I'll get like a phone, like a SIM card for that country so that I have data. So I have maps. I have like a signal on my phone so that I can always call for help if I need to. Most places in Europe have extremely like cheap phone plans. So you could typically for like $10 to $20 get like 10 gigs of data and whatever for the time that you're there, which is super helpful because if you have maps on your phone, like Google Maps, you can always find where you're going. You're never going to get lost. You can always do Google Translate or something if you're somewhere where they're not speaking English. That's always helpful. If you are going to be somewhere for a while, there's usually like Facebook groups. Now this is like, I don't know if these are still a thing. I'm sure you can find these somewhere else. It's not Facebook, but there's always like some kind of like online community for expats, or, you know, if you're like nannying abroad, there's au pair stuff, or there's always some kind of like group of on Facebook where you can connect with other people who are maybe in a similar situation that you can kind of know somebody, or at least find somebody who speaks English. I have a panic disorder, so I suffer from panic attacks randomly. So it's difficult for me to travel abroad, anybody else who gets anxiety from traveling and you're thinking, oh man, I like really like to, but I'm nervous. Please know that I have a panic attack 100% of the time in the airport every time before I get on an airplane. I have to call my mom right before I get on, otherwise I won't get on. My number one tip for if you're experiencing anxiety is just to talk to the people around you. Whenever you are whenever like I always will just start asking a conversation like, where are you coming, or are you going somewhere, or like who are you visiting, are you just looking, like what were your favorite things about, like if you're going, like what were your favorite things about my city, or so on and so forth. And it just helps kind of bring down the anxiety of the situation so that you can actually feel comfortable. So that would be mine. Cover your drinks when you go out. Drink like this. Drink like this. Yeah.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That was a lot of great tips. I hope y'all were taking notes.
That was a lot of ones.
And maybe a lot of this can be surfaced on social media too. So maybe some highlights. So I guess the next portion of the show is just like talking about some of the favorite places we've been, both domestically and internationally. So, Carrie, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, because I haven't talked so much. Yeah, so my favorite place is Italy. I've spent approximately 4 months in Italy over the last couple of years. I lived there for 3 months being an au pair, and then I just keep going back to visit. So 4 months or 6 months, something like that. Anywhere in Italy is fine with me. Their food is bomb, and it's do not ever go to the tourist places in Italy. Always go to the low-key hole-in-the-wall places that look like trash. Their food is always the best. It's so good. It's just the people there are so wonderful. When I was an au pair with a family in Bologna, which is in the north of Italy, and they lived in this tiny community where no one spoke English, and I was like a walking celebrity. Everyone knew who I was as soon as I stepped in, and they would me if I went to the coffee shop to have a pastry and a coffee, people would just arrive and sit there and try and practice their English with me and stuff like that. It was so cute. But I was a 5-minute walk from the train, which went downtown, 10 minutes on the train downtown. So then I was always every day in this big city experience, and then I would come home to this super tight-knit community where people were bringing each other food and asking me how my day was, and I never understood them until the end of my trip because I didn't speak Italian at first. But yeah, that was my favorite I think out of all of my experiences. What about you guys?
That sounds fun.
So
my favorite place that I've been, granted, like I said, the list is small. It's here in the U.S. It's in Destin, Florida. So it's on the Panhandle and on the Gulf side of Florida, and it's just white beaches, perfect sand. The sand doesn't get hot. Perfect water. Well, if you're there at the right time of the year. If you're there, early in the year, the water's not super warm yet. But it's just, like I said, just crystal clear water, white sandy beaches, yummy food. When I'm there, I try to only eat the seafood because seafood on the coast is a lot better than seafood here in Nebraska. So I always try to eat seafood. We have a favorite restaurant that we like to go to there. It's called The Back Porch. I'm going to give them an endorsement because I know they'll be listening to this episode. But it's so good. And if you go there, you have to get the crab cake sandwich. It is delicious. I would eat 20 of those in a sitting if I could. It's so good. Another yummy place is Pompano Joe's, and get their seafood nachos. Those are super good too. But it's just a fun place. So the summertime is like their busy season. And so we usually like to go in the fall. So like September, October, that's when it's not busy, but the weather's still warm and the water's still warm. So you can still, get into the ocean, into the Gulf, and still be on the beach and be warm and have the sunshine on
That's
you.
another great travel tip is never go in peak season. Go in off season every time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always worth it to go in off season.
Yes. And so the reason why we would go down there is my dad's brother moved down there. And so that's how we kind of learned about this place. And I mean, when we go, we don't always hang out with them. We do our own thing and stuff. But it's a lot of fun. And it's like 5 hours from Disney World. So, it's not super close to just go to Disney World from there. But it's fun. And I recommend it if you just want a nice little beach trip.
Beach vibes are the best. Superior. My goodness.
That's my goal in life is just live on the water.
Yes. It's
Same.
so calming. People who don't get like chilled out by the water freak me out.
Yeah.
Just listening to the water, especially at night, where you can just hear the water. Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. Whew, it's tough, honestly, y'all, to choose because I've been a lot of places and I feel very strongly about a lot of them. But I'm going to just go with Ecuador because that trip really changed my life. I went to volunteer in the Amazon rainforest. So, and y'all know how much I love primates. So, binoculars, I was just in having like hours like this. And
if you don't know what we're talking about, please go back to our nerd episode of what
yes.
it is to be a nerd. Listen to Maya freak out about primates for about 4 minutes.
It was amazing. And so it was a lot of like labor. Like, I'm like, am I in a movie or something? Because I literally had a machete, like forging a trail and shit. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But it was just seeing like just so much biodiversity and just all the animals. Like, we don't, especially in the Midwest, I see a squirrel, I see a groundhog, I see a possum. Like, when you're there, you see monkeys, you see snakes, you see wild hogs, you see everything like you can think of. And I'm just like, I really love like animals, and just all of them in like one location was kind of overwhelming to me, but it was so beautiful. And it was a conservation trip, and I felt like there's a lot of amazing things around sustainability that I got to witness there. And it's just beautiful. Like, I don't know how to describe it, because when you're surrounded by trees, like, it's just a beautiful thing. Like, to the point where you can't see up, like you can't see the sky. It's amazing. And I know, like, I was always obsessed with like my ecology class in high school, where it's like the canopy and the different levels of the trees and things like that. So seeing that in real life was just beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And Jalen, you talked about the food. There's it's called yuca. And just imagine like a potato, but it's naturally buttery. And so we would have like fried yuca. The best thing I've ever had in my life. It was so good because like at the conservation kind of like exchange house, they had like these Ecuadorian women just making all our food from scratch. So a lot of people would actually go get the food, bring it, and they'll like make with all fresh ingredients, make all the food. And I remember that being like the favorite food that I had there. So huge fan of Ecuador, especially the side where it's actually within the Amazon rainforest.
Fun.
There's something about taking a peek of like the behind the scenes magic that happens in another country and another culture, and like kind of just snatching like a firefly. Like, I always, like, whenever I go to another country, I always like to think it's like a firefly that I've trapped in a little jar and brought home. Like, just like a little piece of their magic that I'm gonna bring back home and kind of just try and live in that way, because everybody lives differently. than we do, like collectively across the board. Even for people in Italy, like there's something about Canada or about America that is so magical to them too, that if they came here that they would take that back. But in every place I've ever been, I've taken like a little piece of it home with me, whether it's like in Europe, especially, like they just their way of life where it's not a work centric vibe. It's a family and a community centric vibe, and that's first. Work is work, but then everybody meets up at the end of the day for dinner, and all the kids are playing together, and you're all, you know, sharing a drink and a meal with your neighbors or with your friends. And just, I don't know, there's something magical about experiencing something different and having it change you.
Mhm.
For sure, especially cultures that are not so centered, like you said, on productivity. Like,
Yeah.
it's refreshing for sure.
I think I have to say that my second favorite travel experience was again another au pair experience. So I lived in Tarragona, Spain, for 3 months or 4 months, something like that, which is like an hour south of Barcelona. So it is the same deal, like the beaches and the cool attitude and atmosphere, but without most tourists. Like it's just a lot of locals. I lived like a 5-minute walk from the beach. So I spent a lot of nights walking the beach by myself, which was dumb. Now I recognize, you know, that was probably dumb. But at the time, it was really cool. But like speaking of like just cultures and atmospheres that are different, like I remember like I would get up at 8:30 or 9 o'clock and walk around, and like coffee shops weren't open yet. And I was like, what are you people doing? Like, I need my coffee right now. Like, because here, coffee shops open at like 5, 6 a.m. because we are so like, I need my coffee. I got to be at work by 7, by 7:30. You know, this is what's important. And they're like, meh. Like, I open the shop when I open the shop. And then, like, from 1 to 4, everybody's going to take a nap. Nobody's inside. Everybody's like, kids come home from school, like parents come home from work, everybody's sitting there to have dinner together or lunch together, take a nap, go back to work, and then at 7 o'clock they all come together to have like a big meal outside. And it was just such a different experience. And you know, obviously I love the beach. We talked about being there all day, have drinks on the beach. It was just so wonderful, and I loved that experience. I liked, you know, the food was not comparable to Italy, I have to say. Like, sorry, Spain. You lose a lot of points on that one, but you gain a lot of points on, you know, the city vibes and the beach vibes. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I definitely recommend it if you're going to go to Barcelona area and you don't want that city experience, stay in Tarragona. It's beautiful.
Amazing. I definitely want to go to Barcelona so I can relive my Cheetah Girls too. You know, I've still never, my sister been, my whole family's been.
Except for you?
Yeah, because I was at an internship at the time when they went.
So. That's rough. That is rough.
So yeah. What about you, Jim? What's next on your list?
All right. I'll go quick since I know we want to be respectful of everyone's time. But I have been to one place abroad. It was a school trip, so I can't really call it like a vacation because it was school stuff. High school, not college. It was a high school trip. We went to London. It was over New Year's, so that was a lot of fun, celebrating New Year's in London. With it being a school trip, we did all like the typical touristy things there. But I mean, it was cool to say I seen Piccadilly Circus. Is that what it's called? Mm-hmm. They're like Times Square area, Stonehenge, you know, all that stuff. When the group I was in, our chaperone was very strict and was like, we're going to see all the sites that are you need to see in London instead of like just letting people explore. And so the last day we were there, because we're like, if we're going to get sent home, at least it's the last day, so we're not going to miss anything. My friend and I snuck out of our hotel to go shopping and stuff because we now didn't even get like a chance to like buy souvenirs or anything. Like
Real life Lizzie McGuire movies.
yes.
I was literally about to say the strict chaperone sneaking out. I was thinking the same thing.
Well, and I was 18, and so I could buy alcohol there because the drinking age was 18. And so I bought us all champagne for New Year's. I'm like, I'll just buy a bottle and let's go up to our room and drink champagne for New Year's. So, you know, may have broken a few school rules on that trip, but it was fun, you know, and it's fun to say that I have, you know, one stamp on my passport. So hopefully someday more will be stamped on it. But yeah, so I've been to London and it was fun just to be in a different country and culture and, you know, just having fun with friends, wandering the streets of London.
That sounds like a movie. Oh my god. Oh my gosh, it's especially being 18 and like being able to like celebrate like before you graduate or after you graduate in a different. Oh, that would have been awesome.
Well, and what was funny, so the movie Taken like came out before that, and so you know me, like I'm all into these like crime movies, action movies and stuff, and so I'm like everything's like, you know, I'm alert, like what's this person doing, why are you trying to talk to me, like I see that car down there, like I see you trying to get me into that car, like that's what happening. So
wow.
Yeah, it was fun. It's fun to say I've been.
Well, man, the theme is this round is definitely Europe because similar to you, Jalen, I went on a high school trip and we went to France, Belgium, England, and the Netherlands. So the Netherlands is by far, like Amsterdam, by far the best European, well, second after Denmark now, but it was amazing. So, you know, this was like right when I started high school. So I was like 14 years old, like wearing like a group t-shirt. Everyone was wearing the same thing with slacks. It was so cringe. But it was a people to people trip. And we went to like a city. It was like a few minutes away, maybe like 30 minutes outside of Amsterdam, called Amsterdam. So we had the full experience of like farm life, the clogs, all of that, like the freaking wheel. That's, I don't even know what it's called, but you know what's associated with Holland. But and then we went to Amsterdam. It was the best food I've ever had in Europe. I went to France thinking, oh, food's gonna be so amazing. It was not. Amsterdam had the best food out of all the places we went, and it was just gorgeous. Like the canals, seeing the houseboats, the first time I've ever seen that. So I thought it was just so beautiful. Everyone was so free and open, and everyone was so nice. Like, I think people in the Midwest are like the nicest people I ever know. People in Amsterdam are so nice. Random people, it's nothing for someone just to come up to you and spark a conversation. And everyone just seemed really happy and kind. And it was crazy too, because I was like 14 and our bus went past the red light district, which is like, you know, prostitution's legal there. And I remember like, oh my God, what am I looking at? Lots of sex shops were walking down the street even after, like, not in the red light district. And we went even to a store, and then like the back, it was a lady, she had her baby. She was like the cashier. She must have been the owner in the crib. And then on the shelf, it's all like marijuana. Like, so it was just like, wow, like I'm 14 years old and I'm being exposed to a lot of stuff that my very strict parents would never expose me to. So I thought that trip was really awesome. I was supposed to go before going to Denmark and meet up with Lucy, but didn't happen that way. So I'm hoping to go within the next few years, hopefully.
Yeah, there's time. Yeah, I've had like a lot of really cool experiences that I could probably say. Like I had a trip to Greece that was amazing. I went on Orthodox Easter, so there was nobody on the island because they were all like on vacation, and I had basically the whole island to ourselves. Like I went with a friend. That was amazing. I've been to Asia quite a bit, but I have to say, if I'm talking about like top travel experiences, and this is like an uncommon kind of travel experience, but I was coming back from Spain one time. And you know, when you're on like a bigger airplane, they section off sections. You can be in a section of like, I don't know, 8 rows. And then
Mhm.
they have the curtains, and then there's another section. I happened to be in a section of like 8 rows with a bunch of refugees coming to Canada from Syria. So it was during the height of like the trauma and devastation in Syria, and a bunch of them were coming to Canada for safety. And none of them spoke English. And yet the man that I was sitting next to kind of knew like a couple of words here and then, basically enough to communicate with me that he was coming to Canada. And so was everyone else. And then somebody had like a little like translate app thing on their phone that didn't need internet or that they bought internet or whatever, and started to communicate with me a little bit. And so they started asking me questions about Canada. And when I tell you like the joy and the hope in their eyes and how excited they were, and there was kids, like young kids, and they were telling me stories about how they had these businesses at home that were burned down and that they had built from the ground up for like 20 years, or like family that they had lost. And then they were communicating this to me in like super broken like apps, like app translations, or like drawing pictures. And then the little kids were like drawing me pictures because they were so excited to talk to me, and they were just so excited, and they were telling me where they were going, and they were all being separated like across Canada. And Canada's freaking massive, so they were being separated like a 5-hour flight between family members. And I cried the entire way home, and then like once I got off the flight, and then I cried for like 5 days after that. But it was one, like, I'll never forget that experience, because like I think so often we take for granted what we have. And what I love about traveling is that we're able to just kind of step outside of ourselves for that moment. But like I just had this great experience in this trip, and then that like 6 hours or 7 hours that I spent with these people was the thing that I remember most about that trip. It was like the most life-changing thing. And I loved every second of that. And I hope that they're all doing well, and that they love being in Canada, a little bit colder than what they're used to.
Together, like as a family.
Yeah.
No, it was a very moving story.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Jalen?
Another fun trip is New York. I've only been to New York once, and it was for a friend's wedding. So didn't get to spend a whole lot of time there. But that's just a fun city. There's so many people and so many things to look at. And good food. You can find good food there too. I can't remember what pizza place we were at, but not Sbarro. But some, mom and pop pizza place. But it was really good pizza. But yeah, and just the size of the buildings. I'm like I said, I'm from Nebraska. We don't have tall buildings here, and so just seeing those, it's just like, wow, I'd be scared to work in these buildings or live in these buildings because they're so high up. When we were there, we wanted to do the World Trade Center Museum, but the line was like crazy long. And so I was like, I don't want to stand in a line all day long and stuff. So maybe next time we go back, it won't be as crazy and can check out that museum, because I hear it's a really cool museum and it's on my list to see. So, but yeah, New York's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's the state I'm in most often outside of Ohio. Well, outside of Indiana, because that's where I went to school. But New York is like every time I go, there's something new to explore. And it's so much fun. Like, and then we all love the MCU, so I'll like walk around Queens and like, oh wow, Spider-Man was standing here.
I know. I think my friends were all annoyed because I'd be like, oh, this is where they filmed the scene in this movie, or this is where they filmed the scene in this movie, or oh my god, we're by the statue from Home Alone, and
Yeah.
all this stuff.
Hawkeye.
And now I could talk about Hawkeye. So
Right. I remember I was there and they were filming an episode of Law and Order SVU. And Olivia Benson wasn't there, like the woman who played. I'm like,
mhm.
oh my god, this is one of my favorite shows. It's like everything sets place in New York.
Yeah.
So I bet
I
that was
know.
so fun.
The whole time I was like looking, I was like, are you a famous person? Like looking everywhere. And then I heard there was like an event at Madison Square Gardens and The Rock was actually there. And I was like, oh, I was so close. We were all at Madison Square Garden. I could have seen him,
I love
but I didn't.
We
So.
love Uncle DJ. He's so good.
Yes. New York is definitely a vibe.
Mhm.
Oh man, I'm torn. Which one do I want to go with? Okay, I'm gonna go with wine country because we all love wine.
Mhm.
And I went to Sonoma Valley with my sister and then two of our best friends. It was amazing. Like, I just feel like I've never seen this stuff only in movies. So, because I've been to like San Francisco, San Jose, like I guess Northern California a lot, but I've never actually been up like more north than that. So we rented a driver, like a private driver, to take us to 4 different vineyards. And my best friend's like uncle owns the best tasting room in Sonoma Valley. I'm like, what are the odds? So we had like this VIP treatment to the tasting room, and then we went to like these 4 other vineyards. And at first we're like, oh, we probably could have drove up here. We didn't need the private driver. At the end of it, we were so drunk. We had bottles. And then we were staying in Oakland, so like the hour and a half drive back to Oakland, it was so much fun. But like at the vineyards, they're like castles, and then you see these rolling hills of all these grapes being grown, and it's just so beautiful. And I love the movie Wine Country.
Mhm.
So it literally was that. And we got drunk, and at one point the last vineyard we went to, we actually walked inside. We were like in between like the freaking like what are they? I don't want to say wine plants,
The grapevines.
grapevines. And so we were just drunk, like singing and walking through them. It was fully open. No one was like telling you can't walk near the grapes or anything. So that was really fun. And it was just like an aesthetic thing. It was so beautiful. And you just see like acres and acres of them growing wine or growing grapes. Gosh, I need to stop using those interchangeably. I love that trip.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think
and a
that'd be a
girls' trip.
great NGAD trip for us
Yes.
to go to wine country.
Yes, girls
And
trip.
just to also throw out that I live in Niagara in Canada, which is wine country. So I'm surrounded by like 30 to 100 vineyards. And that's just basically all that
Ooh.
there is here.
You're that, Jayla?
If you guys want to come visit. Well,
100%.
that concludes our travel tips for this. There may be a future episode. We travel a lot. We have a lot of tips. Obviously, we love talking about it. If you have tips that you want to share or an experience that you want to share, please at us, message us, DM us, whatever. Let us know somehow. If you have a question that you are at this point too afraid to ask, please let us know. We will take the fall for you. We will ask it, talk about it. If you have a specific topic that you would love to hear us talk about, we have gotten some really good suggestions over the last couple of weeks. So we're adding them to our bank. If you have a topic you would love to hear, let us know. Otherwise, be kind to each other. Go hug a family member, a friend, tell them you love them. And until next week, cheers.
Cheers.
Yes.
Clink.
Clink.